What if I told you were being manipulated? That unbeknownst to you, someone had run the numbers and through a calculated formula and animal testing, had found a way to predict your behavior to make you do something that you were barely aware of. And in the end, started to crave.
Can you give me some money, please? Mom, can you give me some money, please? Stop fucking around! I can't. Mom, give me some fucking money, please!
Fallout New Vegas is a special place in my heart. I have almost 200 hours in this game, and it reminds me of a time when I was completely, totally enraptured by life. When New Vegas came out, I worked at a high school. I was the director of IT, which was just a fancy way of saying the guy in the server room who fixes your broken computer. The guy who transfers your contacts in your iPhone. The wizard who hits a button and suddenly everything works just fine. The job sucked. There was a benefit to it. I discovered a program called UCLA Beyond the Bell. I always wanted to teach, but given my background and my profound disdain for schooling when I was younger, let's just say the chances of me getting a degree of any sort were out of the question. Beyond the Bell was an after-school program and as such, was not bound up in the same regulations that regular schooling was. I started an arts program at a school that was 100% technology focused, and it was a pretty big success. I taught everything from film to painting to illustration. I remember showing a film called Light and Shadow. It was a documentary about the art of cinematography told from the perspective of great cinematographers throughout the years. And nearly everyone in the class, save for one kid, was steady on their goddamn cell phones the entire time. Eventually, this class became a game design class dedicated to learning all the disciplines that go into making a game, since the class was made up of people with so many diverse different skill sets and disciplines. And it was a lot of fun. I mean, some of those kids have gone on to go to MIT through no influence of mine, I'm sure, but I believe others found their passion in games, and knowing that I may have had just a little something to do with that, it was amazing. Even if I didn't have any influence, it was still nice to think it. But despite the long hours every night for nearly 6 months when I got home, I was on the computer playing New Vegas. To get this out there, I liked Fallout 3, but for different reasons than I like New Vegas. But we'll get to that. For now, understand the amount of time I put into New Vegas for someone like me at the time who worked long hours and when he wasn't working was constantly at the dojo boxing and wrestling. Putting this many hours into a game was a big friggin' deal. Now fast forward a bit and Fallout 4's released right around the time of, quite frankly, one of the worst periods of my life. I'm living in Florida working for an aluminum manufacturer, about to lose my job as the place teeters on the edge of bankruptcy, and there seems to be something wrong with my relationship. I mean, the same relationship I put 13 years of my life into. And then Fallout 4 comes out and says, you think things are bad now? Wait till you boot me up. So now that I'm single, without a car, and unable to mingle, I have a lot of time on my hands. So let's talk about the insidious nature of Fallout's game design, as I attempt to figure out what is just so damn addicting about this game, and why I've spent so much of my life trying to play it. Let's dig in, shall we? What was Fallout? I mean, was it a hack and slasher? No. Was it a first-person shooter? Hell no. So what was it? Well, Fallout is a bit of a tricky beast because on its surface, it's sort of hard to understand. I mean, I was about 18 at the time. I remember coming to Fallout from more traditional console RPGs like Phantasy Star, and booting it up for the first time was an absolute mind fuck. The interface made no sense. Creating a character was an exercise in throwing my hands up and saying, I guess that works. In combat, well, I don't know. I didn't know what to think of the combat. I mean, I was used to hitting a command on a menu and watching my little avatar run up to a monster, bash him over the head. Little number pops up, and then you watch the monster fade away into nothingness. This combat, well, it felt like, it felt like Dungeons and Dragons. And what I realized is that's what the game was trying to do. I suddenly got excited. Just when I was about to give up on this game, it all clicked into place. Fallout was trying to be a digital representation of a pen and paper RPG. And talking to people felt natural, and before I even got far into the game, I wanted to make a character with 10 intelligence to see if his dialogue changed, and it did. Then I made a character with 1 intelligence, and he could barely form words, and everybody called him a retard, and I laughed and laughed and laughed. I tried playing through that game with so many different builds. Even tried a high intelligence, high charisma Jesus run. That's a run where you don't kill anybody, or at least you try not to. And holy crap, it was possible. It was difficult and sometimes keyboard smashingly so, but man, I did it. And then there was just the sheer amount of options for completing your quest, and notice I said quest and not quests. See, contrary to popular belief, no quest in this game is extraneous busy work. It's not side quest. All the quests in this game informed the world of your character. They acted as an extension of your will. How you went about the quest informed the character and reinforced the gameplay loop of decision-based role-playing, with a secondary focus on exploration. When I talked a horrible monster into killing itself, that's when I realized that this game was the greatest video RPG I had ever played. Now, Fallout 3, however, was an entirely different experience. It was an exciting ride leading up to the days before its release. You know, there was a lot of people who were thinking that Bethesda couldn't handle this kind of thing, you know. And all the games that they had made before, their dialogue was kind of terrible. They really were not a focused company on RPG-like aspects. I mean, after Morrowind came out and then Oblivion, people were just kind of like, I don't think Bethesda can handle an RPG like Fallout. So I ignored all that. I had it pre-ordered. I bought an Xbox simply because my computer at the time wouldn't be able to run it. And when it came out, I played a marathon session, beating it in a mere 3 days over a weekend, a non-stop play. I played through every single mission I could find, just short of going online and looking up walkthroughs to find the rest. I even tried to play through on a second time, making evil choices, and I was disappointed to find out there weren't many choices to be had, but still, it was a really fun ride. But when I finished playing it, and took it to the store to get credit to buy something else, I found myself wondering why I liked it at all, and all I could really come up with was, it was fun. And it was, but why? The quests were well designed enough. I mean, they weren't great, but they held my attention. They began and ended in satisfying ways. You know, the game didn't waste your time with a whole lot of busy work, and you know, but what was satisfying about them? I mean, the random people I met in the desert were mildly interesting, and exploring was one of my favorite things to do, as it seemed that no matter how much I played, there was still something else to find, but it wasn't the role-playing game that I remembered. It seemed to have lost a step. You know, I couldn't remember a single quest, and to this day, the only things I can remember about the game are that big nuclear bomb in the middle of the town and that group of vampires. I can't recall a single memorable character, to be completely honest. It almost seemed like the fun I was having with it was sort of artificial, almost hypnotic. That once the spell wore off, I was completely free of it and couldn't forget about it fast enough. It was as if I was pecking a button to get some corn. Pecking a button to get some corn. Fallout New Vegas was similar. I was super excited for this game because of the names attached to it. I mean, Obsidian was made up of people who worked on Fallout 1 and 2. At least that's what all the propaganda at the time was telling people. And that was good enough for me. You know, I went to the store the next day and took a half day to get that bad boy installed. But what struck me about New Vegas was the very first quest. The quest to stop the powder gangers. There was a couple ways to go about this quest, and the game in no way held your hand. See, you could help the people of Good Springs, or you could help the powder gangers and install Cobb as the new mayor. But the quest wasn't that easy. You know, there were layers to the quest. First, he wants you to get supplies from the merchant in town, and you can convince Chet to supply either faction or kill him and take his shit. And as for getting supplies from the doctor, you could do the same thing, or you could use your medical skill to convince him, or just steal the doctor's supplies. If you decided to help the town, you had to build an army to fight Cobb and the Powder Gangers. And that involves convincing townfolk into helping you during the fight. Some are more willing to help than others. That was the first moment I realized that this game was so much more different than Fallout 3. It was attempting, at least, to go back to its roots, as close as they could get to their roots in that engine, while maintaining that Fallout 3 explore, loot, reward gameplay loop that I had loved so much about the Bethesda Fallout game. After New Vegas, I think we were all secretly hoping that Bethesda would learn from Obsidian's success with New Vegas and continue on in that vein, but, well, the less I say about Fallout 4, the better. So in short, my experience with New Vegas felt like genuine fun, not something being induced by a scheduled reward. I wasn't pecking the button to get some corn. So why did people prefer Fallout 3 to Fallout New Vegas? I mean, most of this can be hand-waved away by simply explaining it as a personal preference, but what if I told you there was something so much more insidious about the design of Fallout 3, something manipulative and unethical about their design, something they have been perfecting over the years of releasing Elder Scrolls game? What if I told you it was called Operant Conditioning? To understand Operant Conditioning, we need to understand what helps obscure it.
I mean, they need to be stimulated in ways they didn't need to be stimulated before. Every professor who looks out onto a sea of students these days knows there's email, Facebook, Googling me, Googling them, Googling their next door neighbor that's happening in the classroom.
Now, open worlds provide you with a constant stream of visual and auditory feedback. From map designs to quest markers, you're never far from something to do. This type of design makes sense in this new connected world. There is never a moment where this generation, or even my generation, is still and quiet, or God forbid, bored. We're in a cycle of constant input. We are the reason games are made this way, me and you. This is the obvious evolution of the customer's needs. Think about the time this game was released. The year was 2008, the year of Wikipedia, YouTube, Facebook, MySpace, and instant gratification. When 2008 rolled around, we were already had a couple of years with Oblivion and at least 4 years with Facebook and MySpace, and YouTube was picking up steam rapidly. And in 2007, Netflix announced it would offer an online streaming service. Video on demand was already the newest, hottest thing on cable, and Netflix was looking to do the same, but even better, with access to a larger library of movies and shows whenever, and most importantly, wherever the customer wanted it. The immediate satisfaction of any need became the center of our everyday life. Whenever we needed something, we no longer went to the store, we bought it on Amazon. Whenever we needed to know a fact, we went to Wikipedia instead of picking up an encyclopedia. So why as a designer would you build a game around a deep and interesting set of characters with long backstories and complex problem solving when no one would be able to pay attention to it long enough to understand it all?
I teach at MIT, I teach the most brilliant students in the world. But they have done themselves a disservice by drinking the Kool-Aid and believing that a multitasking learning environment will serve their best purposes. There really are important things you cannot think about unless it's still and you're only thinking about one thing at a time. There are just some things that are not amenable to being thought about in conjunction with 15 other things.
Ever wonder why journals in older games were sometimes sparse and didn't hold a whole lot of detail in them? And why some games did without them entirely? That's because the game designer expected you to be doing one quest at a time, and at most 2, maybe 3. But for the most part, you'd be doing the quest that were contained in a single area or close to that area. The quests were so large and complicated that the designer never expected you to quit in the middle of one and come back to it later. They weren't really designed that way. They were designed to be experienced all at once, while working towards your main goal or your overarching quest. In this new connected generation, we're used to multitasking, or if you were asking a behavioral scientist, believing we are able to multitask. We're so used to doing one or more things at a time that we rarely finish one mission at a time. Typically, I'll pick up all the missions I can in an area, go and finish them all in whatever order is the fastest, turn them in, and get my rewards. I'd peck the button and get some corn. Why spend tons of time developing a character that most people are going to pay little attention to and who are expecting to just grab a fetch quest or kill quest from? I mean, go to a dungeon, kill some really bad dudes, and get a reward. Peck the button, get some corn. See, and the opposite of that is what I actually like about New Vegas. The quest designs were non-linear. They had multiple ways of achieving your goal, and they didn't lead you by the nose. And I think that that's what most people who liked Fallout 3 hated about New Vegas. Modern quest design is as uncomplicated as possible while still delivering that scheduled reward, as to not complicate the thought process of a multitasking adult. The system is created in a way that accommodates several quests to be undertaken at once and completed one after another without much thought given to any of them. This is because the average attention span is depleted, and the average player cannot be expected to think deeply about one task at a time. There is a constant need for stimulation that only several quests can sate. The common criticism that I often hear about New Vegas is that it's too sparse, there's nothing to do, it's just a big empty wasteland. And people actually say this stuff. I mean, look at these maps. Fallout 1 had comparatively little to do if all you're looking at is the map. Then look at Fallout 3, next to New Vegas. Fallout 3 is a grid of things to do, able to be undertaken in any way and at any time, like an Elder Scrolls game. Vegas is deliberately designed to funnel you through content, just like Fallout 1. Fallout 1 in the beginning of the game only gave you one waypoint marker, and in between you and that marker was a town situated perfectly in the middle, so the chances of you missing the closest town were practically zero. Once you go to that town, you can find yet another waypoint to Junktown, and so on. The game is funneling you through its content in a way that is organic, that you discover it organically through talking to people, through exploring the systems in the game. In a way, Fallout New Vegas was a return to its roots. Fallout 3 was a scheduled reward system designed to give the illusion of fun. Now, getting rid of verboseness of dialogue and depth of character and complicated quest design with multiple branching paths through the quest was a fatality of reward scheduling. It is hard to schedule rewards in a quest that tries to emulate life, as a role-playing game attempts to do. In order to schedule a reward at a high enough interval, quest must be of a certain length. If the quest is too long and doesn't involve killing something, then the wait for a reward is too long and the pigeon loses interest in the button and no longer pecks it. This is why Bethesda quest design seems so shallow, so quick and short, why dungeons always end the same way and follow a horseshoe pattern. They are designed to give the player a drip feed of rewards in a carefully timed interval. The other reason is that this new distracted generation is reading at a 7th or 8th grade level, and studies have shown that a distracted mind is much less likely to catch on to small details and nuance. So when writing for a generation of adults with so many distractions at our very fingertips, the decision to include complex dialogue and questing seems counterintuitive. It seems like something that would turn a player off of an experience like New Vegas. The natural evolution from New Vegas was a better RPG, but see, the natural evolution from New Vegas to Fallout 4 would have been to make a better RPG, but what we got instead was a random loot generator replete with a random quest generator, survival mode that increased the number of legendary drops, just jacking into your vein. Feeding you what you need to keep you going, chasing that high, pecking that fucking button to get that corn.
Since when has spending time online become a risky behavior, like drinking or gambling? Is it that addictive?
I think it's addictive. There's controversy among experts whether it is or not. In Asia, there's a recognition that teenagers, many teenagers, are addicted to video games. I think that we're behind the Asians in terms of focusing on the problem.
You ever post up a picture you really like on Facebook or a quote and come back later to find out that 10 people liked it and commented on it? How did that feel? It felt good, didn't it? Like a really quick shot of happy juice. Ever notice how quickly that feeling faded? Do you ever stop to take notice of that feeling when you get that super rare drop in an MMO? Even if it's something your current character can't even use, have you ever stopped to take notice of that feeling? What it's doing to you? What it is making you feel? Do you feel good? I bet it feels pretty good. For a little while. See, that is the design of Fallout 3 and 4 from top to bottom. Scheduled rewards with occasional jackpots strewn about to give you that elated feeling. From getting an incremental reward, you peck the button, but nothing comes out. You peck the button again, but still nothing. You peck harder and harder and faster until you finally get some corn. But now you need it more. You need it faster. You want that high, that much more, because the moment you knew what it was like to live without it, life was pain, life was devoid of meaning and empty. You needed the corn to live.
That's what it is to be a slave.
Skinner's box is nothing new. It's been used by gaming companies to design systems for microtransactions for years, but the unfortunate thing is that it's come to replace the beloved systems in RPGs as character development is seen as a number in a stat column more so than what makes a man who he is. I lament the loss of characters that could have been.
All those moments will be lost in time. Like tears in rain.
Games that could have seen the light of day, but were doomed to rot on the vine because the will to make something new gave way to the tried and true manipulation of psychological experiments that were meant to tell us about ourselves, but are now used to control us.
The pigeon to the human case, because one of the schedules which is very effective with rats or pigeons is what we call the variable ratio schedule, and that is at the heart of all gambling devices and has the same effect. The pigeon can become a pathological gambler just as a person can. People gamble because of the schedule of the reinforcement that follows, and this is true of all gambling systems. They all have variable ratios built into them. So what we've learned from the pigeon, it made it possible to interpret this vast field very effectively.
So if all modern Fallouts are designed this way, why do I like Fallout New Vegas? Because it adapted with the times, creating a reward structure similar to Fallout 3 while somewhat maintaining its role-playing roots. And giving the player choice, it trusted that the player could pay attention long enough to absorb the content and the ramifications of the player's actions. It trusted that the player did not need to peck the button to get its corn, that the corn didn't always need to be a shiny new weapon, that corn could come in the form of a nicely resolved conflict, and the character and personal development that comes from role-playing. They trusted that sometimes the reward for playing a game is learning a little something about the other people in our world and about ourselves.
Have you ever seen a rat leap through the air? They will leap onto your face and bore straight into it.
Oh, please. Ah! Ah! I love you. Do it to her. Do it to Julia. I don't care what you do to her, but do it to her. Tear her face off, but do it to Julia, not to me. Do it to Julia! Do it to Julia!
I find something personally abhorrent when a game or any form of media manipulate you like this. It's why I don't own a TV. It's unethical to do these manipulative things, but ethics never made anyone money. When people say there's nothing wrong with this sort of design and that it all comes down to personal preference or that tastes differ from person to person, I feel like they're missing the point. They don't understand the power of manipulation. With strong enough manipulation, a rich man can become a poor man. An intelligent man can be made to believe stupid things. A stupid man can be made to believe he is smart. Sometimes this change can be had through the application of pain. You apply the right amount of pressure, and 2 + 2 can equal
5, anything you like.
Sometimes pain is the right tool to get what you want, and sometimes all you have to do is give someone a shiny new chest plate.
Oh my god.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Oh my god! Oh my holy Stop! 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 Wait! Oh my god! Oh my god! Lucy, that's so good! Lucy, that's so fucking good! Lucy!
How many fingers am I holding up, Winston?
4.
And if the party says there are not 4, but 5, then how many?
5.
No. That's no use. You're lying. How many fingers, please?
4. What else can I say? 5, 4, anything you like. Only please stop it.